Welcome. It's the Close the Deal show. I'm your host, Terrence McCray. Every week we bring you business tips, information, and knowledge from business professionals from the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. We also would like for you to not only tune in on a regular basis, but we also would like for you to know today's show is regarding another nonprofit organization. And it's just so happened this is the nonprofit week as well as the nonprofit month. We're going to be talking about a major issue that has transpired throughout our lifetimes. Every generation has had some form of human experience dealing with human rights issues. So, if you're looking for new business strategies and if you're looking to understand how to develop your own nonprofit, then you're in the right place. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to people who is not only making an impact in their nonprofit organization called Sahr, but they're also making an impact in human beings' lives because they want to make a difference. And in doing so, they need your help. How so? They will let you know not only about the nonprofit that they have put together, which is all over the world because of their counterparts, but they're here to share the horrific stories that has occurred. Please, ladies and gentlemen, on the Close the Deal show viewers, welcome Stephanie and Sarah. Welcome to the Close the Deal show.
Thank you, Terrence.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Thank you, Terrence.
It is truly a pleasure in having you both on the show. So please, could you give the viewers individually in 45 seconds a little of your background, Sarah?
Yes. My name is Sarah. I'm originally from Modena, Italy. I moved to San Francisco about a year ago to spread the voice about our nonprofit Sahr and to find partnership and collaboration with other women's rights organizations and to look for funding for our programs in Afghanistan and India.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm a California native, but I've been living overseas for about the last 10 years. I recently relocated to the Bay Area and met Sahr, and that's how we connected over the organization and the role of making legal change for women in Afghanistan and India, but the implications for that here as well. So now I'm working with the organization and operations to support the visibility and growth of what we do.
So I'm very curious. What does Sahara mean and what does it represent?
Sahr is our acronym, and it stands for Strategic Advocacy for Human Rights. We founded Sahr about 10 years ago in a university in the UK to try and bring legal defense to the most vulnerable women in the world. Our original founder, her name is Natasha Latif. At that time, she was a student of international law in the UK, and her thesis was about rape laws in Afghanistan and their implication on the women's lives. So she wasn't happy on only studying this on books, so she started flying to Afghanistan and look for these communities and really trying to understand what was going on with the women and with the survivors of violence. And fast forward 10 years, now we built an international nonprofit that has been really working on how to strategize legal defense for women who have been wrongfully prosecuted in prisons in Afghanistan, but also who have been always blamed for crimes committed against them. And yeah, this is a little bit about our story.
Okay, so you brought some flyers. Could you indicate what this flyer stands for and the significance of it?
Yes, this is a flyer of the first event that we held in San Francisco in June. And this quote really represents, in a nutshell, the spirit of Sahr, because we really believe that human history began with an act of disobedience. And I think the disobedience is what really connects me as a co-founder to Natasha, my other co-founder, and Nishma, my third co-founder, because we believe that today, much more so than any other time in the history, we need to know what's right and not only what is legal. And sometimes what is legal and what's right, they're not aligned. So what do you do in that situation? And so we think that trying to push the boundaries of what it means to defend women's rights, it really needs a a question and reflection on how we're gonna defend those women if our common values are biased against women, right? We cannot live in a system that claims to be protecting a certain type of population, but then all the system is biased against them. Currently, there are 150 countries in the world that have discriminatory laws against women. That means that most women in the world, which is half of the world's population, are discriminated against. There are cultural, religious biases against women's lives and roles, and we are really trying with our advocacy to break the barriers of this kind of conservative thoughts about women's roles and lives. And that's why Sahr works and provides legal defense and training to lawyers and judges and prosecutors, but also really is pushing the boundaries of what it really means to work within the justice system, within very inadequate legal councils and judicial systems in conservative part of the world.
So right now in our own country, right here in America, we have a major issue with women's rights, believe it or not. We're dealing with a president who doesn't even respect women.
Right.
So ideally, this is not only a perfect time, but this is a time where your issue needs to be addressed. So if you're listening, these strategies that this organization is taking is something that I know for a fact, it seems like you need more support. You can't do it alone.
No, we can't.
So allow the viewers and anyone that may be interested to understand, what is your organizational structure of Sahr?
Just to speak to that a little bit, because it's one of the reasons that attracted me to the organization, is that it is an organization composed of women. So it's we're focusing on female-led change, and I think now more than ever is the time for women to be at the center of creating social solutions for things that impact other women, because women have so much to say about their own experiences, and it's so valuable to have vulnerable populations be a part of creating solutions that they have been a part of. It's so easy from an outside perspective, whether gender or your nationality or your social position, to have an idea of what works for other people. You think you have an idea of a situation, and so it's very easy from an outside perspective to say this is what we need to do. But it's so crucial, not just for women's rights, but I think for all human rights issues, to engage victimized populations and stigmatized populations as being an active part of creating solutions, and also of telling the stories and spreading visibility of what's happening. And Sahr is very unique because we are producing female-led change, I think very aggressively, but it was also really important for me, like this subject of the white savior in developing countries, and our leadership are women of color who have very intimate understanding and of the communities that we're working with. And that was so valuable for me coming into the organization, of working under people that have such a deep understanding of what it is we're trying to do.
So tell me, as well as the viewers, what has Sahr, the organization, has done to assist women that has encountered hardship?
Specifically in Afghanistan, women end up in prison after they've been raped. Yeah, that's exactly right, what you heard. So a woman is charged with the moral crimes charges for a crime that is committed against them. So basically, the perpetrators becomes the woman and not the perpetrator, the person who raped her. So if these sentences that are taken from the judges are not even legal according to Islamic and religious law. So what we do is we develop new defense arguments that really look within the Islamic and religious framework. And we try to appeal to the sentences, and we try to get the women out of prison, because obviously if a woman has been raped, she doesn't belong to prison. She needs a fair trial, and she needs assistance, and she needs to get out and move on with her life. Unfortunately, when a woman is raped in Afghanistan, she also goes through something that is called virginity testing. So basically, in order to prove what happened in the police station and also in some kind of hospitals, they do virginity testing on her, which re-traumatizes the girl, and it's also is a form of torture. So for the past 4 years, my co-founder Natasha has been working with groups on the ground to change this law. So to change the law of virginity testing, because it's a form of torture, and the government of Afghanistan actually rectified the convention that says that this practice is form of torture, but they still implement it. So we want to hold the state accountable. So that's also another part of our big advocacy.
So, what empowered you and your team to want to make a difference?
Well, I think, I joined Sahr in 2010. When it was founded by Natasha in 2008. And as Stephanie was saying, I was really inspired by Natasha's leadership. Natasha is originally from Singapore, from a Pakistani Chinese Muslim family. And herself, as a modern Muslim girl, she wanted to understand what happens within Muslim societies and how we can advance the rights of the women within. And I was personally very interested in gender and Islamic law. I studied international humanitarian law in my master's, and I think this is a very important conversation to have, because I think that if half of the world's population remain invisible and remain disempowered, we are not really transforming the world. So I personally want to create a world, and Sahr, we want to create a world where every survivor of justice is able to access justice that is transformative and healing. And at this point, it doesn't work that way, because, as I said, when something happened to a woman, she's even afraid to go to the police station. And this is 2018, and this is unacceptable. And we want to change the system. We want women to feel protected and to feel empowered to lead a life the way they want to lead it, and not according to books, according to roles model, or according to laws.
So, these barriers that you are speaking about in bringing injustice to justice regarding matters that are occurring outside this country, what have Sahara done to create funding in order to develop a system to where you can reach the people that need help? What has, I see you brought some beautiful, beautiful jewelry. Is this a way that you put the information out there by getting donations from your jewelry for people to buy? Could they purchase this jewelry?
Yes, of course.
I think
could I see
Sure.
one of those?
You can see two. We have two different kinds.
Okay.
I think the subject matter of funding and visibility it's challenging for an organization like ours, because you want so much to convey the reality of the situation to the donor.
Okay.
But we have seen historically in the nonprofit sector something that we call like poverty porn, or this kind of sensationalizing of.
What do you mean by poverty porn?
Sure. So it's like a sensationalizing of the trauma and the experiences of people in other countries, especially in the global south. This idea of giving donors a bird's eye view of very extreme circumstances of trauma, whether it's poverty, whether it's sexual abuse. And it kind of is a form of exploitation of people who have already been exploited in a number of contexts. And you have to ask yourself sometimes, are these people even aware that this is how their story is being told? Okay. Are they aware that this is how these issues are being portrayed in a way that situates them as victims who have no agency in creating change in their own lives? And I think also for the specific case of sexual violence in a context such as Afghanistan, where it's also very dangerous for women to even be reporting what has happened to them in a culture of honor and shame. Some of these women are at risk of continued violence from their own families and retaliation by the men who have already hurt them. So to point visibility, to show their face, for example, could actually put them at great risk. And as an organization, we feel a deep sense of ethics and accountability to protect them. Because you can't just show images publicly of people who are coming forth about dangerous subjects without the expectation that you have to help protect them afterwards. So I think right now the organization has faced a lot of challenges in how to navigate the funding landscape creatively, so we can bring real attention to the donor market about what it is we're doing and what are the realities on the ground, while still maintaining the dignity of the people that we're trying to serve. Do you want to speak a little bit about the bracelets?
Yes, we're actually really excited because the bracelets are handmade by Syrian refugees women in Turkey. And so we are partnering with a local organization called Revi. The co-founder, Felipe, we really like you. Thank you so much for this partnership. And we commissioned these Sahr bracelets. And basically, when people purchase the bracelet, it's fundraising for us, but also it goes like a half of the cost of the bracelet goes back to the women making the bracelet. And it's probably, it's very difficult for Syrian refugee women to get any kind of jobs or employment. So this is basically contributed to their monthly salary. Speaking more also to the funding spectrum, we are really excited to be in San Francisco because receiving public funding from governments and different development agencies is really, really difficult. It's a long process of application. So we're very excited to be here because there is a very vibrant entrepreneurship scene, and there is also a new focus of cryptocurrencies and blockchain, for example, investors that would like to put their wealth at service for a social impact. And we've been exploring partnership. We've been meeting very interesting people and people that really want to create a change. And actually, it's very interesting because this new technology is actually really helpful in contexts where women maybe don't have bank accounts. It's very difficult for women to hold a bank account because usually, their bank account is together with the husband's bank account. Mm-hmm. And so, blockchain, Bitcoin, if we manage to create such a technology for those communities, it's actually an immediate way to move the monies and to pay the salaries of the women lawyers in the countries that we work on. And so we're very excited about exploring this and to meet even more private foundations. And we're going to have a big fundraising event that is going to connect theater and filmmaking and storytelling and dance on December 4th at the Laundry, a beautiful art gallery in the Mission District. And we would love to see some of you also over there so you can learn a little bit more of what we do.
I just, if I can, add some context. So my colleague had said that, over 150 countries around the world have active laws that discriminate against women. And just to add context to that, what that really means is the difficulty for women to be financially empowered, independent in their household, the ability for women to hold property, the ability for women to maintain custody over their children in the case of a divorce. And we have to understand that the work we're doing in creating legal change and advocating for women, it's not just changing these types of things, but what we refer to as the post-legal space. What does justice really mean for a victim of violence? Is it just changing laws? Is it putting their perpetrator behind bars? Or is it also moving a step forward and creating new opportunities for them to become empowered in a way that gives them agency in a space that they already know and understand? So I think that's sort of the greater story of Sahr, is how can we provide that for people? How can we be a piece of fueling other people's agencies?
In 15 seconds or less, what do you want the people of the Bay Area in San Francisco to do with your organization? 15 seconds. What do you want them to do?
Do you want to go on? Yeah, I think shall we ask for funding directly? Yeah.
You're on. 15 seconds.
We've been so impressed with the level of engagement we've been seeing in the Bay Area community about the Me Too movement and Time's Up. And we really want to we really want people to remember that what we're doing overseas is intimately tied into the social movements that are happening here, and how lucky we are to have the voice the way that we do as women in a Western country. And we would like to see more people donating their subject matter expertise, their incredible work or art venues for our purposes to tell these stories, and also outright donations so that we can scale our programmatic work overseas.
Sounds wonderful. And what I find very interesting is the fact that you people have taken the time out from your work to make a worthy cause become fruition into someone's life being actually changed. In San Francisco, a lot of people always talk the talk, but you're actually walking the walk. You're not in it for the money. You're in it to see people's lives change. And that's the difference that you hear from other organizations. that are not actually in it for seeing lives change. I've had multiple different nonprofit organizations on this show, and a lot of them are sponsored by Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, okay, local banks, local colleges, and they're addressing issues dealing with the inner youth to prevent our young youth from reaching that street life and not becoming a statistic. But you women are changing lives because we as men come from you. So ideally, if you remove the women, how can we be reproduced? So ideally, we want to also focus on how to treat a woman, how to speak to a woman, how to appreciate a woman. And if we can't understand that women are just as equal as men, then how are we as a race are going to be able to not avoid tales of disobedience?
I think the most disobedient thing a man can do is to stop being complicit in the bad behavior of other men.
Correct. Absolutely. So I want to thank you all for coming on the show, not just sharing your story, but sharing the stories of the voices that can't be heard and is not being heard. But through your voice, a difference can be made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
Terrence. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
this
Thank
so
you.
much.
Absolutely. Before we close this deal, please, you can tune in on Monday nights at 8:30 on Channel 29 Cable Comcast. You can also look us up on YouTube worldwide and type my name, Terrence McCray. Like and describe. Choose your favorite episode. If you would like to be a guest on the Close the Deal Show, then go to www.theclosethedealshow.com. Because see, here in the Bay Area, we not only like to educate the Bay people, but we like to inform you with significant information that can make a difference in someone's lives. So, if you want to make the right connection and close the right deal, then tune in. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good night.